So the satraps, prefects, governors, advisors, treasurers, judges, magistrates, and all the other provincial officials assembled for the dedication of the image that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up, and they stood before it. Then the herald loudly proclaimed, "This is what you are commanded to do, O peoples, nations, men of every language. As soon as you hear the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipes, and all kinds of music, you must fall down and worship the image of gold that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up. Whoever does not fall down and worship will immediately be thrown into a blazing furnace." Therefore, as soon as they heard the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, and all kinds of music, all the peoples, nations, and men of every language fell down and worshipped the image of gold that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. At this time, some astrologers came forward and denounced the Jews. They said to King Nebuchadnezzar, "O king, live forever. You've issued a decree, O king, that everyone who hears the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipes, and all kinds of music must fall down and worship the image of gold. And then whoever does not fall down and worship will be thrown into a blazing furnace. But there are some Jews whom you have set over affairs of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who pay no attention to you, O king. They neither serve your gods, nor worship the image of gold you've set up." Furious with rage, Nebuchadnezzar summoned Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So these men were brought before the king, and Nebuchadnezzar said to them, "Is it true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you do not serve my gods or worship the image of gold I've set up? Now, when you hear the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipes, and all kinds of music, if you are ready to fall down and worship the image I made, very good. But if you do not worship it, you will be thrown immediately into a blazing furnace. Then what God will be able to rescue you from my hand?" Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied to the king, "O Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you in this matter. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to save us from it, and he will rescue us from your hand, O king. But even if he does not, we want you to know, O king, that we will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold you have set up." Then Nebuchadnezzar was furious with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and his attitude toward them changed. He ordered the furnace heated 7 times hotter than usual, and commanded some of the strongest soldiers in his army to tie up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and throw them into the blazing furnace. So these men, wearing their robes, trousers, turbans, and other clothes, were bound and thrown into the blazing furnace. The king's command was so urgent, and the furnace so hot, that the flames of the fire killed the soldiers who took up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And these 3 men, firmly tied, fell into the blazing furnace. Then King Nebuchadnezzar leaped to his feet in amazement and asked his advisors, "Weren't there 3 men that we tied up and threw into the fire?" They replied, "Certainly, O king." He said, "Look, I see 4 men walking around in the fire, unbound and unharmed, and the 4th looks like a son of the gods." Nebuchadnezzar then approached the opening of the blazing furnace and shouted, "Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out. Come here." So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came out of the fire, and the satraps, prefects, governors, and royal advisors crowded around them. They saw that the fire had not harmed their bodies, nor was a hair of their heads singed. Their robes were not scorched, and there was no smell of fire on them. Then Nebuchadnezzar said, "Praise be to the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent his angel and rescued his servants. They trusted in him and defied the king's command, and were willing to give up their lives rather than serve or worship any god except their own God. Therefore, I decree that the people of any nation or language who say anything against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego be cut into pieces and their houses be turned into piles of rubble, for no other God can save in this way." Then the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the province of Babylon. Now, if you're not familiar with this story, there's some background information that you need. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were not their real names. These guys were Jewish teenagers. Teens living in the land of Judah, most likely, near Jerusalem possibly. We don't exactly know where their hometown was. But their Hebrew names were Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. And their names get changed when they get deported from the land of Judah to the land of Babylon. Now, if you were alive back in that time, the understanding of a Hebrew name was not just your identity, but it was your relationship with God. Many Hebrew names carried with it a meaning that expressed who they were in relation to God. And now these three guys have been transported to a new land, a land called Babylon, and there in that land, that king changes their name. It's like they came into Ellis Island. What's your name? Hananiah. Sorry, that won't do around here. You're going to be Shadrach. What's your name? Mishael. Sorry, that won't do around here. Your name is going to be Meshach. You know, it makes perfect sense. And the last guy, Azariah. Sorry, that won't do around here. Your name is going to be Abednego. Yeah, okay. So anyway, these guys have to accept these new names. That's what the king gave them, and so they're going by these new names. But they become leaders by these new names. Here's the deal, though. As Jewish guys whose names and identity have been changed, who have been taken away from their homeland, and who are now in a new place entirely, serving a new king, these guys had every reason in the world to feel abandoned by God. I mean every reason. So they knew the Old Testament promises. They knew that God had said, "I promise that my name will be set up here in Jerusalem, and it will never leave this city." God said that. God also said, "I promise I'm going to put my king, David, and his sons on the throne of this land forever, and they will never not be king." And here, these three guys are in a foreign land. They're in the wrong city, and they're under the wrong king. They have every reason to feel abandoned by God. Go ahead and put that up on the screen there so you guys know how to spell abandoned. They have every reason to feel abandoned